There's never any shortage of jobs to do when you're preparing to go out for another sailing adventure. And this time, it's changing the oil and tightening the V-belts.
Christopher, you just mucked up.
I've been pretty busy in the lead up to Christmas and I haven't had time to put any videos out the last week, but I have been on a sailing adventure for a few days down the Tamar River, and we've got some very interesting video footage to prepare for you over the next few days, so look forward to some Christmas entertainment.
Got some serious hazards to negotiate between the house and the workshop as we're building some pathways and ramps to make access a bit easier.
That's much better. Now I'll be able to get backwards and forwards to the workshop.
Invested in this little thirsty bilge pump, which is a dual purpose pump in that I can use it to pump oil out of the engine by putting that on there and then poking this in there and sucking the oil out and putting it in that bucket. Meaning to replace these screws with a couple of bolts with wing nuts on them, but with supply chain issues I haven't been able to locate a couple of 3/8 wing nuts with a solution for this. Still pretty simple. And we'll just put that in the cockpit for a little while. Oh, now check that out. I think that could explain why the belts are slipping.
Seems that it's very difficult to get good old-fashioned V-belts. You can only get the notched kind. The ones that I've got are a bit long, so it's at its maximum extension, and that means that they were slipping a little bit, and hence the rubber everywhere.
Oopsie daisy, oopsies. Nice one, Christopher. My mother used to always call me Christopher when I mucked up. Christopher, you just mucked up. That's saying there's no oil in there. Well, I'm about as happy as a pig in mud here. That was about as messy as it can get. It's time for a little bit of scientific or semi-scientific analysis. I want to see what is floating around in the sump of my engine.
Turns out that it's mostly carbon that's crystallised in there. I could only find 1 or 2 tiny little specks of metal, which I thought was quite encouraging. But tell me, where's that carbon come from?
It actually looks pretty clean on the inside. Looks like it takes about 1.5 litres, maybe 1.75, so it's time to go to the workshop manual and find out. 1.5 litres of good old-fashioned mineral diesel oil to clean up all of this black gunk, which is rubber off the belts. You see the belts have gone pretty slack, notch belts, and I'm not even sure if they're the right profile. And this is incredibly grippy flywheel here, grooves. It's about like a 40 grit or 16 grit, and it decimates those belts if I'm starting it without the decompressor. So I'll be using the decompressor, and I'll be trying to source some good old-fashioned V-belts.
The boat ramp at the tail race is only about 2 or 3 kilometres away from me as the crow flies. So once I got Sarah Ann in the water, I tied her up to the pontoon and then drove back up the hill so that I could park my trailer at home where it was safe over the next 3 days. I didn't have to worry about it sitting in a car park. It's pretty cool and very windy, and so I didn't have to worry about other people needing to use the ramp while I sat there for 20 minutes. I felt a little bit anxious about leaving Sarah Ann sitting there bobbing up and down amongst the ducks and swans, all on her little lonesome. I was on the approach to the 18th green of a Launceston golf course when I got attacked by a swan, so I was a little apprehensive about Mum and Dad looking after their cygnets. Okay, so this is the walk from my house down to the boat ramp. I've launched Sarah Ann and tied her up to the pontoon where she's sitting unattended. Behind me you see what's known as Stevenson's Bend. So it's the bend in the Tamar River. It's actually the sewage treatment plant.
I've been running all my days, and all my troubles have found a better way. And I've been trying to clear my head of all the useless words I never said. But oh, let's slow it down. Look at what we found.
When we first arrived in Tasmania and I was doing the initial restoration work on Sarah Ann, I came down here to the tail race and identified it as a pretty handy and close place to launch the boat. The interesting thing is that we went all the way up to Gravelly Beach to launch her. It's just a really beautiful little spot. They've built a very nice boat ramp here for us, and it's literally teeming with bird life. Well, the tide is flowing out pretty rapidly now, and I need that tide to get north up to Gravelly Beach, where I'll have to spend the night, or maybe I won't quite get that far, but head up there somewhere. I've got the wind on my nose. I was waiting, hoping that that might drop out a bit, but it hasn't. So it's time to fire up. And get on down the river. Pulling away from the jetty at the tail race, and pulling out into the Tamar River at 76 feet. 5.26 knots. The current is running pretty strong. And that will be very helpful taking us all the way up to Gravelly Beach. We've got the wind directly on the nose. So wind against tide made this little section of the river a bit choppy and potentially a bit wet. It's all right while we're going straight into it. Tomorrow's a pretty exciting day. My little grandson, Cadell, and his mate Otto are coming down to Gravelly Beach, and we're going to take them for a sail. So you might remember, if you've been looking at some of my earlier videos, that when I had Sarah Ann rigged and sitting on the trailer in the yard up at Trevelyan, Otto and Cadell jumped in, and they had, I reckon they spent about 2 hours tacking backwards and forwards, fortunately not going anywhere across the backyard. They were learning the ropes, so to speak, and they've been very keen ever since to come for an actual sail on the river.
Ready about Lego!
So tomorrow, that day has finally come. But that part of the story is going to have to wait till around about Christmas Eve when I publish my next video.